Up against the wall, and I remember this time he slams me up against the wall hard. I mean, I hit my head hard.
Okay,
And
so we're
this
back
is the wall
watching
next
the
to the
Amber Heard and Johnny
I say
Depp trial,
kitchenette, but
and this
it's
is
more of a bar.
a ways into her testimony
I remember there
today.
were these cooling fridges, and I remember kind of being.
So we will
slammed
try
up
to play the
against
first part of it as
those. I
well, but
remember
this is where
pushing
we're
them off of
at the
me.
moment.
I remember the name calling, the whore, the slut, the fat ass. I remember a lot of name calling. I said
Had he been drinking by this time?
he was drinking.
Calls for speculation and leading.
Johnny Depp's team is way more on her tail today,
What if
not
they
allowing
drinks had
them.
you
They were
observed
letting them get
Mr.
away with a lot
Depp
yesterday.
by this time?
They were
Well, I had
just
already
kind of
seen
letting
him
her
drink
talk and
right in
carry
front of me,
on.
took a big
They're
swig
catching
out
her
of a
today.
wine
One
bottle
thing I noticed
upstairs,
is
right in
they're
front of
not
me
letting
as
her
a-
do that thing she was doing,
in a gesture
where
of,
she's
like looked right at
kind
me
of getting
and
very
took a big
theatrical
swig out of
and,
it as a, like a
not really saying anything, just showing all this emotion.
show-
They will
did it right in my
object.
face to make a point.
And I forgot what the word is
then
they're
when
using,
I came
but
downstairs, he was drinking from the bottle.
they're stopping her from doing that.
I
trying to
don't know
control
what kind
that
of
because she's
liquor.
very
I
theatrical.
remember there was another bottle open, and I was wondering why he was drinking both. But at some point, he had me up against the wall next to the cooling fridges, and I remember slamming my head up against the thing. He had me by the neck, squeezing my neck, and it got really nasty. It went from like, oh, no one likes you, no one likes me, everyone warned me about you. That's what it was. He started to tell me that everyone had warned him about me, and that he wished he had never married me, wish he had never met me.
I don't think
no
any
one
of this
likes me.
matters what
You
he
know,
said
it
to her
sounds,
because she's obviously said
childish,
lots of
but,
nasty things to him too. They said nasty things to each other
I
while they
remember
fought.
feeling really hurt, and then at some point I shoved him hard to get him off me, and he shoved me back, and he said, "You want to go, little girl?" That I couldn't, as I sit here today, tell you if that happened before he choked me up against the wall, but at some point, I am in a struggle with him where I'm holding his shirt lapel, and he kind of just flings me, for lack of a better way to describe it, throws me across the room. I land on a games table. It's like a ping pong table.
The thing I'm wondering is, she talks to the
And I
jury.
don't
She
know
stares
if
at
I
the
was
jury while
holding
she's
on to
talking.
him, or
I'm sure
if
she's been
he
told to do that so she can connect with
pursued
them.
me separate,
I'm
but
wondering
he
if that's working
gets
or
on top
not.
of me on the games table and is just whacking me in the face, like repetitive. When you struggle on the
she's told a
games
few
table,
stories
I
now
don't know.
about this too, that he's him hitting her in the face over and over and over again.
I don't know.
Where are those
how
bruises?
We get up. I don't know if he pulls me up.
If my husband was hitting me in the face over and over, I think she's
she's
taken pictures of some bruises she's had. So if these moments, though she just happened to not videotape that or take a picture of those moments.
The drinking or argument about the drinking, and he holds up this bottle to me, and I'm saying, did you drink this whole thing? Something stupid, focusing on this detail, and he is telling me that I can't control him anymore, and that if I really wanted to try, take it, and then he's like taunting me to take the bottle from
water
him.
wrong.
If I really want him to stop, why don't I take it from him? Go on. Kept saying, go on. and kind of
See,
gesturing
she
the-
has
the
massive
bottle towards
details
me.
too. So that's a question I heard asked
And,
earlier: is she remembering? Like,
he
is she
does that
telling
2 or 3
so
times.
many
I reach
details
for
of
it,
so
he
many different
revoke it,
instances
kinda
because
laughs at
she's
me.
so traumatized that this stuff's burned into her mind?
And he's
Or is
holding
she
out
very
the
well rehearsed?
Bottle, I think like maybe the third
You know,
time
and
or
she
so,
did
I
this
get a hold
already
of
at the
it.
other court case. Maybe she's watched that
I
testimony
pick it
over
up
and over and
I
over.
slam it down on the ground right in between us. There's a tile floor, a white tile floor. And I smashed the bottle on the floor. And that really set him off. So stupid.
She's a storyteller. And I don't mean that in the way of saying she's a
he's,
liar.
It was
mean,
like a light bulb.
I'm leaning that way right now, that she's a liar. But
starts
I mean, she's
screaming.
a storyteller. She knows how to give you the vivid image.
I don't know if he backhanded me or hit me normally. I don't really recall, but I remember it sent me down to the ground. I remember by the time I picked myself off the floor, I stand up. He's got a bottle in his hand. And he threw it at me. It missed, thankfully, but I kind of pulled myself back into the bar area. I don't know how much time passed, but at some point he had a broken bottle up against my face, neck area by my jawline, and he told me he'd carve up my face. I don't know at what point in the evening. I couldn't tell you what sequence wise when that happened, but it was terrifying. It wasn't the first time he said that to me. He said that to me on the plane as well.
But you still didn't leave him.
But this time he was
He threatened to
holding a
kill
broken
you, threatened to
bottle.
carve up your face, was beating your ass, and you didn't go anywhere. Not saying lots of women get abused and don't go anywhere.
I honestly don't remember if I threw anything in his direction. I don't think I did. I just remember him having me by the nightgown. I remember him flailing me, throwing me around. I'm flailing. This is after there were some bottles broken on the floor. I think this is actually after, again, forgive me, I wish I could remember the sequence, but it's flashes. He's throwing these bottles at me. I remember retreating. There were also cans, like soda cans, beer or soda cans, and they're coming at me one after the other, and I keep pulling myself into the bar area. There's a bar behind me in like a, I don't know, like an L shape. He's standing in the only way you can exit, so I'm kind of trapped in front of this sink, surrounded by bar on 3 sides with him in front of me-ish, kind of front off to the left, and he's throwing these bottles one after the other, and I can feel glass breaking behind me. I remember feeling.
Was he missing every time he threw them?
One of them go by my head really fast. I mean, a real velocity. I remember being terrified. I remember I couldn't move. I couldn't go anywhere. I eventually, trying to, I don't know, he ran out of things to throw. I think that's how I moved myself towards the exit. And I believe that's most likely when we got kind of in this struggle by the bar area, because I remember my feet slipping on the tile as he was slamming me from the wall to the countertops. At one point, he has me up against the wall and he's punching the wall. He had my, nightgown and it kind of ripped it off my chest. I remember at one point he's teasing me, taunting me that he has my breast in his hand. My nightgown came completely off. It was ripped off of me. So I was naked and I'm slipping around on this tile and trying to get my footing. And I remember slipping on this tile. Glass was underneath me, and I remember just trying to get my footing. I felt really destabilized and felt really vulnerable. I'm naked, and he's flinging me around, and at some point I'm up against the wall and he's screaming at me that he fucking hates me, that it ruined his life. I remember I ruined his life over and over. And he starts punching the wall next to my head, holding me by the neck. I get free from him. I kind of step back from him, and it's like his energy shifted to the phone. There was a wall-mounted phone on the wall next to where my head was, and he went from punching the wall to like realizing there was a phone there, and he picked up the phone and he's screaming. He's like at the top of his lungs, screaming, "I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you. You ruined my fucking life." And screaming at the top of his lungs, he picks up the phone and starts bashing the phone against the wall where I was just being held. And I remember kind of having some distance on what was happening and watching him do this. And it was like his energy had shifted, and I was that phone all of a sudden. And he was just over and over again smashing this phone into the wall, over and over again, screaming at me. And I was watching the phone every single time he pulled his hand back. It was just breaking into pieces. I remember thinking this phone is disappearing. He's smashing it to smithereens, just going into the wall. And at some point, he's on top of me, no phone, but screaming the same thing. "I fucking hate you. You ruined my fucking life." I'm on the countertop. He had me by the neck, and he felt like he was on top of me, and I'm looking at it in his eyes, and I don't see him anymore. I don't see him anymore. It wasn't him. It was black. I've never been so scared in my life. It was black. I couldn't see him. And he was looking at me, and I was trying to get through to him. I was trying to say to him in some way that it was me. I was trying to get through to Johnny, and I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him at all. And my head was bashing against the back of the bar, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember trying to get up, and I was slipping on the glass. My feet were slipping, my arms were slipping on the countertop. And I remember just trying to get up so I could breathe, so I could tell him.
This is very, very terribly traumatic. The way she's explaining this.
I don't know how.
And she seemed very brave and nasty and in those audio tapes, calling him a effing baby. And if she knew that he got to that extreme, okay, I feel like I figured this out. She's full of shit. Excuse my language. She's full of crap. She's lying. This is theatrics. I hate to say that about any woman who may have possibly gone through something like this. This is
I couldn't.
She's trying to
I couldn't breathe.
Nail the
Get
coffin.
through to him. I couldn't.
Nail in the coffin. Make sure she's trying to make sure she wins.
I couldn't get up. And I don't know how that ended. I don't know how. I don't know what happened next. I don't understand.
This doesn't match with her behavior.
The next thing I remember, I was bent over backwards on the bar, meaning my chest was up. I was staring at the blue lights, and my chest was on this. My back was on the countertops, and I thought he was punching me. I thought he was. I'm sorry. He was. I felt this pressure. He owned my pubic bone. He thought he was punching me. I just saw his arm. I could feel his arm moving, and it looked like he was punching me. But I could just feel this pressure. It was like it kept hitting him. It didn't feel pain. It was just a pressure on my pubic bone, and I don't know. I don't remember what I said. I just remember being really still, not wanting to move. I remember looking around the room. I remember looking at all the broken bottles, broken glass. And I remember just not wanting to move because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel it. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anything. I didn't want it. I looked around and I saw so much broken glass that I didn't know if he would know. If he would know, I didn't know if he would know if it was broken or not, and I just remember thinking, please God, please, I hope it's not broken. I don't know how that ended. I don't know how I got off the countertop. I just remember it being in the bathroom. I remember retching. I remember the sound my voice was making. I remember I lost control of my bladder. I remember just retching. I remember there was some blood on the floor.
And did she go to the doctor after this?
I got up at some point.
I mean, this is an awful, awful, awful story. This is
know how that
very
night ended.
traumatic. This is like your most horrible
I don't remember
rape attack story.
what happened. I don't remember. I
But
have a memory.
Stayed married to him after this and tried to beat the crap out of him too,
going outside
and
the
screamed
front
at
door.
him and
I remember
screamed at him not to leave.
coming out
If they were fighting and he was leaving, why would she scream at him not
remember.
to leave, knowing that he gets to this level? That
That was
doesn't make
before or
sense to
after
me.
this?
It's like with
I
all
don't
of the
remember. I
drama,
just have that
dramatic,
memory. remember-
expression she's giving. It makes you want to sympathize with her,
taking a
but I
bunch
keep
of sleeping
thinking,
pills.
gosh, if
Not a bunch,
she just keeps staring at the jury too, and I just feel like
Which
if
is
this
a lot
happened
for
to you,
me.
man, that'd be hard to look at these strangers and tell them this.
I don't remember falling asleep, but I know I fell asleep because I woke up the next day. I assume it was late morning. I could hear him downstairs. I could hear Marilyn Manson music, not in person. I could hear the music. Maybe he said it was Marilyn, or maybe I could recognize it. I don't remember, but I became aware of it. That's what I was hearing. It was blaring. It became clear, obvious to me when I walked downstairs. He was still up. He hadn't gone to sleep again. I walked downstairs and I saw this brown on the walls going down the stairs. And the brown on the walls became clear, like it became clearer, like lettering. And then it was obvious it was dried blood. He had written down this, that we had a spiral staircase, like white cream walls. There was blood on the carpet. I could see blood drips. I thought it was from my arms or feet, but it was drips. So that plus the wall writing.
No nurse
I saw this brown
saw this,
letters on the
saw any
wall,
injuries on
and
her?
Then realized that he was trying that
Except
there
a
was meant to be a
possible
message, but it was
slightly
incoherent.
swollen, bruised cheek
I
one
saw
time.
what looked like my name, but I really couldn't make out most of the rest of the message. Walking down the stairs, I saw a bird in the house. I thought that was surreal. I went down to the main level where my painting studio was, and I had some canvases out. It was in the living room area. And by the time I got down to the bottom of the stairs, the dried blood had been kind of taken over by paint. It was navy blue paint, and then brown paint. And then it was, on the walls, on the lampshades, pillowcases of the sofa cushions. There was blood. In the painting studio, my canvases had been covered with what looked like just brown, blue, green, red mess. It was just a mess. There was a painting that had, a painting that the owners had that had, like giant penis on it, and, some other things. There was a table overturned, a bunch of broken glass on that floor. I walked downstairs where I heard the music coming from, and that's where I found him, blaring this music. He was in the study, which is by the bar games table area off to the side, and it was just glass and blood and broken window, and just, it looked like a mess. The table was collapsed, and I walked into the study. There was a couple unbroken empty bottles. I remember wondering where they came from. And he just looked, he wasn't there anymore. He wasn't there. It wasn't Johnny. He was standing at the office desk. He had his hand wrapped in this like rags, or bandana rags, and I think he took them down or somehow showed me, and he said, "Look what you made me do. I did this for you," something to that effect. And I kind of put together, it was covered in paint, and I put together that that's like he was using his finger. I quickly became aware that that's what he was using as a paintbrush, even though there was lots of paintbrushes around. And we didn't have any sort of like coherent conversation, as you can imagine. I figured out he was missing a finger. He kind of held it up, and I said, "What did you do? When? Like, what did you do? When?" And I realized in my head that there had been many hours since this probably happened, assuming that was happened with the phone. In any case, I knew it had been way too long, that he had this blood, that he was bleeding, and I said, "I'm going to call 911 if you don't call Jerry now." I still don't recall which of us called Jerry Judge, his security. At some point we went upstairs. He came upstairs, but he went up to the third floor while I was in the main floor, the entry level floor. I went to make him a cup of coffee because he was demanding more Red Bull, and I was thinking that's probably not a good idea. I don't know why coffee would be so much better, but in my head it was. I thought maybe, I don't know, sober him up, or I don't know. Help was coming though, and I remember I made him coffee. As soon as I handed it to him, he threw it at the TV and started screaming again. It was like back to square one. Shortly after that, security arrives. I don't know how long, maybe a few seconds or minutes went by, not long, but they kind of find Johnny, or Johnny finds them walking out of the front door, and they were trying to figure out what was going on, and as they were kind of looking at him and trying to figure out what the heck was going on, Johnny took his penis out of his pants and started trying to pee or peeing outside of the house, saying that he had more messages for me. And this is in front of security. And they kind of just like looked at each other and looked at him and kind of not laughed, but kind of half, played it off and corralled him. It was how it looked. It looked like corralling a wild animal back into the house with his penis still out of his pants, peeing or trying to pee. That's what he was indicating. And he went to the wall of the house, and I remember him standing at the wall trying to leave me more, saying he had more information for me. He was gonna leave me more messages, more information for me. It made no sense. And Jerry Judge, his security, and one of the nurses, shortly after, I think they put me in the theater room, but shortly after, I remember talking to one of the nurses, and she was trying to give me drugs to sedate
Objection,
me.
Your Honor. Hearsay.
Trying to give her drugs.
See, now this, I remember this in the testimony
And
where they were playing that audio,
I
and
just
the doctor
remember,
was saying that she wouldn't take,
I
this was
just
after
remember
his finger
crying
was cut
and
off,
rejecting.
and the nurse
what they were
was
trying to
telling the
give me.
doctor that she
And
wouldn't
fighting
take the
with
extra
them about
dosage,
how
and the
much they were
doctor
trying to
said
give
she
me
was
that
guilty. It was
I
guilt.
Felt like I needed to.
This is guilt because she was hysterical,
what was
according to
happening with my
them.
life.
So
What was
why was
happening
she
to Johnny?
guilty? Why were they
I didn't
assuming she
use-
had guilt?
Okay, I didn't
If she
know.
didn't do it, or this all happened the
I
way
actually
she's claiming.
had
And if she was
no
raped with a
idea,
bottle
like,
the night before and
this
beaten the
be
way she's
something
explaining, and the doctor and
died
nurse were
from, if
there
anything, just
a few hours
drugs
later
and
after she woke
alcohol.
up, how did nobody know
mean,
this, see this?
That
How was
alone,
she not
I
all
didn't-
bruised up
I
and
was-
bleeding and like,
I just remember
this doesn't make
being scared
sense.
and being in this theater room, this dark theater room, and not knowing what the heck was going on. I eventually was taken up to my room by one of the nurses, and I'm sorry, Debbie, and or suggesting I go up to my room. I went up to my room, and I took a quarter of what she was trying to get me to take, and I eventually fell asleep. I came back downstairs to look for my phone, which Johnny had picked up before security came in. He picked up my phone and said, "We're going to get to the bottom of this." He wasn't making any sense at the time. Understandably, just different. Nothing made sense. But he picked up my phone and was saying, I'm going to prove this. We're going to get to this. We're going to get to the proof of this. Something to that effect. I don't remember his exact words. And he pushed record on my phone. I didn't actually at the time think that he had done that. I had no idea, but I did know that I didn't have my phone when I woke up and went downstairs to get it. It was dead. It was sitting out on the dining room table by where Jerry Judge was sitting. Jerry Judge was on the phone and talked to me, and I went back up to bed, took more of this sedative, and fell asleep. And then I think the next day, went to the closet and took out the clothes that he hadn't painted on. I guess when he went back upstairs, he had just like, it looked like what he had done is dip his hand in a bucket of paint and just wiped it on my clothes. Just went, and he had picked up another portion of my clothes and put them in the bathtub, and I don't know if he added paint or if he just
And then this is when they had to force her to leave. Like, she didn't want to leave. They told her, he told her she needed to leave so he could recover on his own. And she didn't want to go. After he raped her with a bottle and beat her ass, this doesn't make any, and right now it's, the memory is so traumatic. She could barely speak. She was about to come apart telling this story.
On the way
But
there.
then she didn't even want to
Stop you there
leave.
because I want to ask you some more questions about those.
It just doesn't make
We can
sense.
talk about Ben King and going home. So Do you recall what bottle Mr. Depp was drinking from and then had that back and forth with you and you threw on the ground?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound leading.
Sustained.
Do you recall what the bottle was?
No, I don't.
Do you recall whether it was wine or liquor?
It was liquor.
Do you,
The wine was upstairs.
do you recall
And
what color
Excuse me.
it was?
you can't always say what somebody else will do, how they'll react, but
I believe it
when
was,
she was telling that story, she
white,
was staring
clear,
directly at the
but
jury.
I can't be certain.
I just
think
feel
it was
like
clear.
from
Do you remember
things that
whether
I
it had a
know,
handle on it or not?
from
No,
experiences that
normal
I've seen and witnessed,
I
someone
remember
going through
because he was
that
holding it
much
like this,
trauma,
just for me to
explaining
take
it to
I reached for the
strangers,
bottle. It was
it's
a
I just
normal-
feel like she would have went more inside
bit to
herself.
left,
She
I
wouldn't
can't
have just
remember, like,
stared
what
at them
brand.
while she was telling the story. It's like she's on a stage.
When you woke up that third
And she's
morning
telling this
and
story.
came out of your room, what, if any, food did you see?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Objection,
was-
Your Honor. Leading.
Overruled. There was mashed potatoes smeared all over the bedroom door, on the wall, in various places. But I remember opening the door, being really confused at first as to what it was. Had little like specks of green in it, I assumed to be spinach. And throughout the house, there was food rubbed in places, just countertops, walls, doors, as I mentioned. And later that evening, I found the raw meat that I had left out, the steak, all over the house, or pieces of it. It was cut up. And he had ripped my nightgown into pieces, into shreds, and wrapped the meat up, like wrapped the steak pieces up with my nightgown. It was this really beautiful burgundy silk nightgown that had this black lace trim. I ironically got it from Dr. Kipper
Weird.
for a wedding gift.
It's such a weird story. You think
And
that
it
must
was
be
wrapped-
true.
I found it. I could
Because
totally
who would
find
make-
it
why would you
throughout
make
the
up
rest of
such
the time that I was
weird-
in the house in Australia. There's a
He
piece
wrapped
of it in the microwave,
Ross,
pieces
my
of it in
nightgown,
the
ripped it up and
produce
wrapped
drawer,
it and wrapped raw steak
in
in
the
it,
closet drawer.
and
Oh,
placed it all
Johnny.
around the house.
I mean, just raw meat
Golly.
wrapped up in my nightgown, as well as the smeared food on the walls. It was
It sound like some
bizarre.
movie type
But
shit
he
or
said
something.
you needed to go home and you
What,
didn't
if
want to
anything,
leave
do
with
you
all this going on.
recall seeing on any
I'm not
mirrors?
leaving.
Oh, he'd written.
And isn't this the morning after the finger thing? So that
mirrors.
that guy, the
in
house manager
the
guy, had to
bedroom.
clean it
I
up.
believe
He didn't mention
there was
anything
another
about the
mirror. I just
food
don't
and the
recall
steak in
which
the
bathroom it
nightgown.
was in.
I wouldn't
I
want
suppose
to
it
work
was
for
the
them.
one that I went to.
I
Which is on
know.
the
He
very
said he
bottom
cleaned
level,
up. Him and the staff cleaned up.
Where I was.
I mean, I can't imagine you
retching,
coming up
for
with
lack
this
of
story.
Better way to describe it.
But
I think it was in that bathroom that he also wrote on that mirror as well.
What, if anything, do you
In
recall?
blood.
rock star
And paint,
lifestyle.
sorry.
I'm sorry. What, if
That's
anything,
the-
do you
that's the rock
recall
star
of any
lifestyle.
lampshades being lit?
Trash hotel rooms.
Well, he wrote on
In their own
messages
houses.
to me, things to the effect of go-getter, horror sort of thing.
what it was interesting earlier too was they were talking to her
calling
about
me
how many
easy, calling me
the
slut,
MS whatever, I can never think of those letters for that
calling
drug.
me, and,
She was talking
you
about
know,
when
like,
they
just
that
thinking
he
about
took
ego
like a bunch of
and
them, and
the
she knew because she counted
poor
the
I was,
bottle,
but
she said there was like it was
hard
like
to make
8,
sense of it
and then
because
her lawyer
it
said
was
8 that
clear
he took
he
or
was-
8 left in the bottle.
it just
And
out of
she
his
was like,
mind. It was- I mean.
I just remember that it was like
he wrote
that. If
on
you
a-
specifically
on a-
said
on
the
the
number
back of a
8, then
pillow
you should have known if you were
in
talking
blood.
about he took 8
You
or
could
there was
tell
8
it's a dry
left. But then she had to
fucking
think
brown
about it,
color.
and
It
like
wrote on
I
the
just know
walls
that when I
going
looked at the
downstairs,
bottle, there
like,
wasn't that many
it took
left.
In
It's
fact,
like she
you could
changed
see
it up, but her
where
own
he-
lawyer
it
kind of
looked
caught
like
her
he
up
went out of blood
unintentionally.
because the messages became
And I'm just like, if you said 8, then you know, are you saying he took 8?
clearly
No,
letters.
because
Or he left it.
And the letters
I think that
kind of
drug is
became-
super strong.
Right, but she
Like, I
was
could
saying
see
how
that
many he
had clearly
took.
run out of
That's what
blood,
I'm
She was
but
making the
wasn't bleeding
point
enough
that
and
he
went and
took
got
tons of them.
paint.
She'd take one and
then
he'd take a
became
bunch.
paint
But they
and
were. She
blood.
was
You could
saying
see
that
both.
she tried
You
to
could see
figure
where he
out
went back with
from what was in the
Same
bottle
with
how
yours.
many
I could see
he had
where all the
taken, and
dried
she was
blood
just trying to
was,
figure out
and-
because she realized there was
And
8.
then I could see a
And her
different
lawyer was like
set of
8 in the
markings, paint
bottle,
and some other
or he
material.
took 8. And she didn't have an answer.
So
She's
I'm gonna
like had to
go back
rethink it, and then she wasn't
the
sure.
Time in the bar, and I
So I'm like,
noticed
why did you say
the
8 if you didn't know?
Painful. Do you
Johnny got
recall
artistic with his
what
blood on the walls.
Mr. Depp
Huh?
was saying
He
to
got
you
artistic.
when he had the bottle?
And he admitted
was
that. He admitted
pushing it
he
against your
smeared blood on the
pubic
wall
bone?
and paint.
That,
That's fucking weird.
that he would fucking
He said because
kill
the
me.
shock that he felt like he was in because she had cut his finger off.
fucking kill
Now
you.
she's saying the next morning.
said it to me.
Just all this.
Hold it, wait a minute. You cut my finger
Listen, I'll
off,
fucking
and I'm in
kill you.
shock. So I'm gonna write on the walls in my blood
Did you
and paint
bleed from the
I know, like-
vagina as well?
I did.
and mashed potatoes.
And did you experience any pain later?
I wasn't thinking about that.
Right now.
So she's saying
I was
she was
heartbroken.
bleeding and hurt from him raping her with a bottle.
Eventually, I realized that
And he
I
had
could
beaten
be
her and slammed her
hurt
up against the wall
because
and
I
all this
was
stuff, was
bleeding.
slinging her back and forth against the bar and the walls, and then held her
but
down, was holding her
I-
down, raping her with a bottle. And that she was bleeding afterwards, but she didn't go, and then she was sliding all
bottle
over this
wasn't
floor, and
broken
there
out,
was
so it would be a
crushed,
lot
broken
worse,
glass
and
everywhere. But she had no injuries,
discomfort
and the
I was
doctor and the
feeling
nurse were there that
afterwards
morning,
just paled in comparison.
and they took him
how
to the hospital with his cut off finger.
scared,
But
shocked I was.
and then when he came home
Scared.
from the
I just married
hospital,
this man.
he wanted her to leave,
I just married him.
and she didn't want to leave.
And forgive me for asking this, but I need.
I mean, I know sometimes women won't leave with the most traumatic stuff.
Penetrated up the vagina into the pubic bone, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Bleeding.
Sustained. What, if any, penetration was there in your vagina? With the bottle. I'm so sorry.
Do this.
I am so sorry.
She said it already.
Johnny had the bottle inside of me
She said this already.
and was shoving it inside of me over and over again.
But you said you didn't feel
you
pain at the time. You just felt
experience
pressure
Cuts
in your pelvic
on
bone.
other parts of your body.
My forearms were cut. My bottoms of my feet were sliced up pretty good.
Did you have
Where's
any
the
other
medical
bruising
reports of
or
this?
swelling?
I had a bruise across my jaw, I suppose, from one of the many times he clocked me in the face downstairs.
And there's no medical
I think-
report, and the nurses said they didn't see it.
I think I just didn't make a record of anything else.
Weird.
Huh?
She
I'm going
said she
to
didn't
ask
make
you
a
to turn to,
she didn't make a report of anything else.
let's go to,
Shouldn't the next question be,
18.
did you go to the doctor? Did you...
Yeah.
The doctors and nurses were
Well,
there.
actually-
Say that.
let's go to 1815. Michelle, if you can bring that up, defendants 1815. And I think these are all in, Your Honor, so if we could publish.
they can all be published.
You leaving?
Is this the game table?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is this, based on your testimony, is this where you were you on top of this table?
Yeah, that he briefly got on top of me, and was pushing on my throat, actually, at some point when I was on the table. I had forgotten about that. And this, though, looks like it is after a lot of the stuff was cleaned up, because it didn't look quite like this.
Okay. And did the table collapse
Yes, it did.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained.
What, if anything, happened to the table?
The table collapsed underneath me when Johnny threw me into it and got on top of me, or fell on top of me. I honestly don't know which one.
We could look at 1816, please, defendants. Do you recognize this, what's depicted in this picture?
Yes,
What is it?
it looks like the bottles that were by Johnny on the desk when I came down that last morning, and he was still up, still drinking.
If we could go to defendants 1817.
The bottle shape. The bottle shape.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't, I have not,
Go back to 1816, please.
Your Honor,
I had,
is there a question?
I got to ask a question.
What more do you recall?
you had, sorry, it took me a minute to respond because it's hard. It took me a minute to respond because I had not remembered seeing the bottle that Johnny was using on me. I didn't have a memory of seeing it. And this picture, I wasn't aware of until just the other day, yesterday, the day before. And I felt my stomach tighten up, like I was gonna be sick when I saw it. Because even though I didn't remember seeing the bottle, what I had remembered is a pressure, like something square, which is why I thought he was punching me. I was feeling the square, something firm hitting me, like butting up against my pubic bone. Over and over again, I felt that pressure against my bone. It felt like a flat surface. But when I realized it was an object or a bottle and not his fist, which is what I thought, because his arm, I could see his arm while he was holding me down, saying he was going to kill me, but I thought he was, his arm looked like he was punching me. And I hadn't seen this bottle. I didn't know. And then this came out in Ben's evidence because he didn't share it until this date.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And so I recognize it.
All right, now let's go to defendants 1817. Do you recognize this area, this picture?
Yes, it looks like one area of the bar. Obviously, this is sometime later because all the liquid is dried up. It's quite slippery. I was slipping all over that tile, that's how I know. Looks like a lot of the glass has been cleaned up almost.
Okay. And then let's go to 1818. Actually, I think
I'm
that's-
sorry, which,
Yeah, I don't have that
that's not
number.
in evidence.
Yeah, and that's a duplicate. Let's go to 1819. My apologies.
Okay.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is this?
This is close to where my feet were when I was dangling off the counter, when he had me on the countertop. by my neck. My feet were slipping on the tile, and I just remember my feet. I remember feeling glass underneath my feet and slipping. I couldn't get up. I couldn't alleviate the pressure on my neck as he was crushing me. That's that's next to that.
Well, it just seems like with all these injuries, she would have had a lot more pictures of bruising and injury. If she had cuts all over her feet and cuts all over her arms, why didn't she photograph that? Why didn't she report that to the nurse or the doctor?
Do you recognize what's depicted here? The area.
Yes, that's to the left would be where the wall-mounted phone was. Right to the left of that. To the right of that is the little L-shaped bar that I was telling you about, where I was trapped. And
you know what I'm saying? Like, do you just feel like there's that video, there's that audio where he's saying, you're about to get physical
you're looking at this
violence,
picture,
so I'm going to leave.
imagine.
And you don't know what it's like, or
to the
because
left.
I was being punched in the face, so you know what it feels like to get punched in the
Person
face.
height,
And she's
height,
like, "Oh my God, Johnny, I
so
wasn't
like a
punching you. I did not punch you. I was
don't know if it
hitting
was
you.
antique, but it
Stop
kind
being
of
such a
looked
baby. You're such a
old-fashioned, like an
baby."
old-fashioned, heavy.
That does
It looked
not
heavy,
line
like
up
the
with
receiver,
this
but it
kind of
looked like he was
traumatic
watching it
attack.
break, you know, it looked like these like really
I
heavy
understand
flat-
he gets drunk and high
it's really,
and acts
thick,
bonkers and does
heavy,
bizarre
not plastic, but
stuff.
like a Bakelite or something heavy.
But this isn't. This just
material on it.
You got to
That's my
keep your
best guess, that
mind
would've been
thinking
to the
about
left,
all
and
the
then
other
to the right would've been
evidence.
the
I mean, there's some evidence to
very
show some of
into
this
the
that
bar
she's
that you
saying
just saw a picture of.
happened. I mean, you know, the blood on writing on the walls
go
and
to
everything, and the lampshade and all
1821.
this weird stuff. And who knows why he did that crap? But
And do you
and people
recognize
get
what's
pretty
depicted in
crazy
this?
when they're in these kind of relationships and do
Yes, that's the
bizarre
bar
stuff.
that I was just talking about.
But you got to get down
Now,
to
I see a
the
phone on
nitty gritty
right
of it,
side.
like
Is that the phone you were
who's
talking about?
fully.
No, that's not. This is
Everybody's
a-
going to
a
exaggerate
wall-mounted
to some
phone.
degree. They
It's
just
a
are.
landline.
They're going to have their perspective. They're going to tell their story, and maybe make something sound less or more as
You
it
see
was.
straight ahead at the very
But just the way she
You see
keeps
that
looking
straight
over
ahead
at the
of the
jury,
picture
like she's
on the
on
top
stage
part of that. It appears
performing
to be
for her
some broken
audience. I
glass.
don't like
Do
that.
you recall? What do you recall of that?
I recall more than just this window being broken. This is one of the windows that he broke when he was throwing things at me. My body was standing in front of that little kitchen sink you see at the end of the picture. I suppose that's some of the glass I felt though on the backs of my arms. Like when the window shattered.
Okay. Let's go to 1822.
1822, I don't have in evidence. 1822 is not in evidence.
That's exactly why I just went over here. Let's go to 1825, I think. Is that the next one, Your Honor?
1825 is in evidence.
Okay. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes, that's where Johnny was standing when I found him the last morning. That morning, it might have been like midday. When I say morning, it was after I woke up. It was certainly not early morning. And he was standing at that desk, behind the desk, with the Manson blaring.
I bet you if
When-
she's
when I-
able to, she'd write a book.
And I found him and told him that I was going to call 911 if he didn't call Jerry.
If you look in this picture, there appears to be a lampshade down below. Do you recognize that lampshade down below the table?
That's one of the lampshades Johnny wrote threats or messages to me on.
Okay. Then let's go to 1827. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do. That's my painting studio. So when I walked downstairs and saw all the blood on the walls, I walked into this room first. That's where the stairs empty into this room, and kind of my painting area. And those are the canvases that he repainted.
And do you see, if you look by the white tablecloth table to the right of that, do you see a lampshade there?
Yes, I don't know if that's the same lampshade or another one.
Okay. Then let's go to 1828. And do you recognize what's in that one?
I do. Those are were my paintings. That I don't know when he did that, if it was before or after the writing on the walls, but he just ruined them.
So I just want to make sure, so the painting canvas that's dark colored, there's two of them there.
Well, there's two or three, and then there's a smaller one in the center, and that was his daughter. I was trying to paint a portrait of, and that was untouched.
Okay, and then, but just so we're clear, the one directly in front of you that looks like it's just a lot of dark colors, was
Oh.
that dark colors before, or,
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
I said, was that dark colors before?
I'll sustain the objection.
What, if any, change was there on that canvas?
Oh, I'm a terrible painter, but I'm not that bad. That was not my painting. It was the start of a portrait, and he changed it dramatically.
And then to the right side, on the other side of, more to the right than the one you already testified to, is that what that picture looked like before, or is that,
So
Objection, leading.
what if any changes were there to that picture?
well, the three canvases were portraits, so they looked similar to the one that's in the center that I was doing of his daughter.
And the white that's below, what if any changes were there to that, the white canvas that you see there?
It just looks like the painting was, it looks like once he destroyed.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sorry. Sustain.
Was there anyone else in the house besides Mr. Depp and you?
Not that I know of, no, and no one was around.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe somebody other than Mr. Depp did this?
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
What if any reason do you believe that Mr. Depp did this?
Objection,
That was not, what if any?
What's the objection?
leading.
No, I'll overrule that objection.
Thank you.
It was just Johnny and I in that house over the course of those 3 days, roughly. There might have been somebody, his assistant or something, come on the first day or second day, I can't recall, but for the majority of for the entirety of what I've been describing to you, it was Johnny and I in that house.
And did you do any of this? Did you
No.
create any of this damage?
No.
I'm also going to take a look at the white tablecloth to the right there.
And also, Johnny was covered in paint, so to answer your question fully, that's also how I know.
All right. So I'm also just going to draw your attention to that white tablecloth over there. Does it appear to have some paint on that as well?
Yes, there was paint all over the place, to say it plainly.
Now, the painting that you indicated, there was a large penis, I believe. Where was that?
I believe it was just, like, if you're looking at this, I believe it was on the wall, almost right next to the painting directly center that we're looking at. That's my best recollection, but I can't be entirely sure.
Okay. Let's go to 1828.
I think that was 1828.
Oh, 1829, my apologies. And do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
What's in it? And what was this?
This is one of the lampshades that Johnny chose as a medium to leave me messages in blood and pain.
Okay. Let's go to 1830. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that's one of the bathroom mirrors.
Okay. And if you could just look to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and circle it over here. You see red and black there. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And there were some questions that were asked earlier about that red. What, if anything, did you write on this mirror?
I didn't write anything on the mirrors. I was as confused as anyone in hearing that testimony.
And based on looking at this area that I have circled, is the black on top or underneath the red?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation, leading.
Sustained objection. All right, this might be a good time to take a break. Why don't we go ahead
Okay.
and take our afternoon break, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and have our break. Do not discuss the testimony with anybody, and don't do any outside research. We'll come back here. All right, in 15 minutes. All right, so we'll come back at 4:02, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, it's not all lies, because obviously there's proof that he destroyed stuff, and acted crazy. Now, he was using drugs, he was drinking, he was in a very volatile, crazy relationship, and it was probably adding to his extreme behavior. But I feel like he doesn't, there's, a report from someone at a job or at one of his movie sets that he punched a guy or hit a guy or something. But as far as I know, I don't think there's anything in his history other than when he was in his 20s messing up a hotel room or something, as far as I've seen. You know what I mean? He doesn't have this reputation. I think his bad boy reputation is because of the tattoos and, the whole vibe he has. But he actually has a reputation for being super sweet, and you could, if you go on YouTube and you can watch video after video of people talking about how polite he is and how, charming keeps getting thrown around that word. But what a gentleman he is. And then you can watch these videos of him with his fans, and he's just constantly talking about how he recognizes that these people are why he is who he is and has what he has and how much respect he has for him. And he shows it. Granted, any of these people can act any kind of way on camera, but even other actors are on camera saying that he will stand out in the rain for hours talking to, hugging, signing autographs, and no other actor does that, and that actors don't have to do that. You know what I mean? You see him sign some autographs, say hello, wave, but he has to be dragged away all the time because he wants to. And then on top of that, when he like says his hellos to his fans and they want to, if he spots someone who's having a real emotional reaction to him, he makes a point to go to that person and hug them. He gives people these very genuine, warm, long hugs a lot of the time. I mean, again, I know I'm biased, but her testimony is just making me feel like, oh my God, is he this person? Yeah, she's describing, but and there's a part of me that wants to feel for her because I'm a woman, and like when she broke down talking about what he did to her with that bottle, I mean, it was like she almost couldn't hold it together. She just fell to pieces. But again, you can watch an actor put on a performance that will literally bring you to tears, right? And like I said this in my other video, I am really sensitive to people crying or getting emotional, like in person or even on television. I am really sappy. Like my kids will see me watching something and be like, "Are you crying, Mom?" Gee, because I connect. But I didn't come into this like, I hate Amber Heard, like a lot of people just have this already, like, she's a liar, she's a piece of crap, I don't believe a word she says kind of attitude. But I was like, as much as I like Johnny Depp, I mean, I don't know him, he doesn't know me, I'm not gonna like, root for a abuser because I think he's good looking and a good actor. I mean, that's stupid. So I mean, I was willing to give her a benefit of a doubt a little bit, just, make my own decision as to whether she's telling the truth or not. And like I've said before, it's really hard to criticize and go against someone who's explaining that sort of abuse. I mean, it's not like a mild, hey, he hit me a few times, so yeah, I had the right to say I was a victim of domestic abuse. She's painting a picture of a very violent, scary, mentally unstable human who she knew this about and then married him anyway, and then after marrying him rapes her with a bottle. I mean, and then there's testimony that, okay, doctors and nurses, like, no cuts, bruises, signs of any injury on her. But she is reporting this man, she's like, what, 120 pounds, little bitty thing? And he's throwing her against walls and kicking her and punching her and smacking her repeatedly and all these horrible things. And she doesn't have bruises and marks. But she took a picture of a bruise on her arm once. And then she took a picture of this perfect little bruise on her cheek, when that was in the paper. And this might sound weird. I don't know if anyone agrees with this, but sometimes when I was looking at her in the courtroom, I don't know if it's just because her cheekbones are so high and the lighting, but her cheeks look like, the way she does her blush, it looks like she's got bruises on her cheeks anyway. So I'm thinking to myself, if that's the way she does her makeup, how hard was that for her to, put a little extra and make one side look bruised? I mean, maybe not. Maybe she had a bruise. And you could have a bruise from something else and think, oh, I can tell people this bruise I actually hit my face accidentally on a cabinet door or something, but I'm going to tell people he did it. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. The thing that I just keep coming back to that I cannot get past is she's this one person on the stand that, like, this, I'm such a fragile, traumatized victim. And I'm telling you, I'm looking all of you strangers in the eye, telling you dramatically this story. And it doesn't look to me the way a traumatized victim would tell their story. It looks like the way an actress would put on her performance to her audience. So it's like she knows they're her audience. It doesn't matter what we think. They're who she has to convince. So she's, and I think I heard that the majority of the jury is men, and they said statistically men are more likely to side with the woman, and women are more likely to be critical of women. So, and I feel like men might feel uncomfortable to walk into the back and go, I think this lady's full of crap. With the Me Too movement and everything, it might be hard for them to say, I think she's full of it. I'm on Johnny's side. And knowing that Johnny is, an odd duck and has a issue with substances, that doesn't work in his favor in this case, but it doesn't make him what, she's claiming he is, which is this violent abuser. I think Disney would deal with him because, first of all, let's face it, Pirates of the Caribbean is Captain Jack Sparrow. Without Captain Jack Sparrow, what is Pirates of the Caribbean? Nothing I want to watch. I mean, his character, so for Disney to get rid of him, it's not going to be because he runs late. It's not going to be because he uses drugs, because tons of the actors use drugs and drink and act crazy sometimes. But he's a sexual abuser, a domestic violence perpetrator. Yeah, Disney doesn't want to be connected to that. So I think it's probably pretty clear that because of what she has said about him, her report of him is actually absolutely going to affect his career unless he can prove that she's full of shit. So, like I said, when you listen to the audio, it'll be interesting to see when they come back and his side gets to stand up and question her, because right now, of course, her side is going to let her, and I think it's great that, because yesterday the one thing I talked about afterwards is how theatrical she was, and a lot of the I don't know. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but she did a lot of that. And I just feel like when you're preparing your client, that you think they would tell her, hey, get to the point, state the facts, don't, be hard. I mean, I'm sure she's like, how do I present myself so these people, because she's been judged, in the public, people can't stand her. So I'm sure she's struggling with that, but it's like she's decided, or someone's told her, be over the top, really show your emotion, really make these people, and so yesterday they were kind of just letting her go and do this. And which for me, I wondered, is the jury feeling funny, like the way she's looking them in the eye, telling them, or are they connecting to her because she's looking them in the eye? You know what I mean? So I don't know if that was smart or not, but I noticed Johnny Depp's lawyers today are not having any of that. I think it's unresponsive, I think is what they call that objection. She's getting a lot of hearsay objections, and most of them are being sustained. So her lawyers are trying really hard just to let her tell this whole story. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when his lawyers get up there, which it is Thursday right now. Tomorrow there's no court, and they're on break next week. So there will be no court next week. So on the one hand, she has a week to prepare herself to be questioned by his side. And on the other hand, his side has a week to go over her testimony and prepare their questions. So that one should be very interesting. I am very curious to see how that's going to go. Yeah. So, it's crazy that this is, like, we're able to watch all this, isn't it? Very bizarre. I feel like I know way too much of their personal business now. I mean, I'm wondering how this is going to go. I'm thinking he won't win, maybe, because they're going to say there was some level of abuse, even if it was verbal, even if she was abusive back, because that's what she's presenting. He was abusive to her, so eventually she defended herself and retaliated, instead of just walking away and getting out of this terrifyingly scary situation that she was so scared for her life, but she stayed. I don't know, was she trying to get enough months under her belt in the marriage so that she could get the payout? I don't know. But she's just presenting herself as such an innocent little frail little, thing. And when you watch her and other, like, even I was watching last night, because I've been watching this trial stuff about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard keeps popping up on my YouTube feed thing. And there was a thing where Johnny Depp pranked her on some show that does pranks, so tried to make her think her car was stolen, but really he had her car put in some garage to fix it up. And even on the, granted, her car was stolen, and she was upset, but she's, like, flicking off the camera and stuff, and, like, I don't know, it's just, not, I mean, I've flicked people off before, doesn't make me a horrible person, but it's just everything you see of her outside of, not that she has a lot, because she's not that well known yet. I mean, this has made her more well known than anything. But everything that there's this thing about her that she seems bitchy. And she might not be. I mean, my best girlfriend growing up, I remember people coming up to me and asking me about me being friends with this girl sometimes and going, isn't she a bitch? And she wasn't. She was the most wonderful, funny, loving, sweet person you'd ever meet in your life. But something about this, she was very pretty, very, very pretty. And something about her, people got this idea that she was snotty or bitchy. And she wasn't. It was all just the way she appeared to people, perception. So I think I'm open to that, And on top of that, Amber Heard reminds me of somebody that I actually care about. So it made me almost want to like her. But I feel like I'm being bamboozled by her, watching her, trying to connect to her. She has not made me tear. Now, the stories she's telling of this sexual violence is making me a little sick to my stomach. But when her emotion has not connected, like I haven't connected to her emotion. And I don't know why, because sometimes even when I don't want to cry for someone, like it could be somebody I really don't like, and they can start crying about something that I know they don't even have the right to cry about, and it'll make me cry. So I'm wondering, it's like, am I picking up, is my senses picking up that she's full of crap? And that's why I'm not feeling any emotional, sensation watching her have these emotional breakdowns. And, if you went through all this with somebody, when she tells the moments of them, the way they met, and now she did try to make him, in my opinion, she tried to make him seem kind of like a creepy, older man who was coming on to her and she wasn't comfortable with it. And, he wanted her to, even when she talked about him wanting her to move in, she seemed hesitant, but he wanted her to move in. There's these little signals she's throwing out there, but then she tells these stories of how romantic and wonderful, and they were soulmates, and, it was all magical and velvety, warm glow, their bubble, all this stuff. And she will smile like she's going back there, but she'll smile like she's telling the story also. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, is she so telling all this stuff and in such detail and all this expressiveness on her face because she's going there in that moment? Or is this part of her act, part of her
Thank you.
thing?
All right,
So
before we get to the jury, I just want to see,
that's what I'm
Sammy, is
thinking
Friday,
so far.
May 27th, it's not, we usually don't meet on Friday.
I feel like
Is that
she's an
okay
actress.
day to have trial on that Friday? It's the Friday before Memorial Day. I want to check with the jury, but I want to check with you first.
Yes.
That'll actually be closing argument day for anybody that wants to know. Okay. So, right. So I just want to make sure that keeps it track. But if it's good with the jury, I just want to make sure that Friday's good with them.
That works for me, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, sure.
I like the judge in this case too, by the way. So closing arguments on the 27th. I'm sure this girl with, I notice how they keep switching lawyers, and now this girl with the dark hair on Johnny's side is the one giving all the, so I'm assuming she's the one giving all the objections. I'm assuming she's the one who's also going to cross-examine, which I'm not surprised they're using one of their women on their team to cross, because you don't really want a man, questioning a woman who is presenting herself as fragile, the victim of violence and rape and all of this stuff. The thing is, when you're an actor, that's a whole different level of pretending. I mean, we have good liars, but an actor knows how
Thank you, Your
to
Honor. Michelle, if you can
pretend
bring
in front
back
of
up
people
1830
comfortably,
for a moment.
I mean, and that goes for both of them.
1830, I'm sorry. Amber, we were talking about this right before the break. It still has my highlight. Which color is underneath the other?
Objection. Calls for speculation.
Based on your perception, which color is
I'll
underneath?
sustain the objection.
All right, let's do this. Let's bring up defendant's 375, which is already into evidence.
I'm surprised the judge is sustaining some. I mean, rightfully so, I think, on them, but surprised.
I think I need to clear that highlight, Your Honor, but I don't have the control on mine. There we go, thank you.
It's in the top right corner if you need it, but that's fine.
Thank you. Oh, there it is. My menu was hidden. Amber, I'm going to ask you to take a look at, this is the picture that we saw earlier. And do you see the area that's written in red here?
Yes.
Okay. What, if anything, did you have to do with the writing of that red?
Nothing.
Do you, before this trial, did you know who Carly Simon was?
I might have heard her music, but no, I didn't.
Okay. Did you know what songs Carly Simon wrote or sang?
No, you had to tell me.
Thank you. All right. And then if you can just remember this picture, again, the red area there that I've circled. And then I'm going to ask Michelle to take this one down and put 1830 back up. And I'm going to ask you to take a look at this. What, if anything, did you do to this mirror with respect to the black or the red?
I didn't touch it.
Okay. And what, if any, pictures did you take?
I took a picture of It was the picture we had right before this is the one I took because it was in the bathroom where I found my clothes in the tub and stuff like that.
And that's, let's go to 374, please. That's already in evidence.
I even think about the video she took of him slamming the
picture you're
cabinets
referring to?
around, and how you can
Yes,
tell on
yes.
that video she
Okay,
keeps
and
trying to
I'm sorry, I just
strategically
wanna make sure
hide
that
the
I
camera
understand.
and film him.
What else
And
was
she's
in
so
this bathroom
terrified. I mean, she
where
really
this
makes
mirror
it
was?
sound like she was absolutely
The
terrified of him.
bathtub and
I just
another
don't. I feel like if he was
mirror,
behaving
which
that
also
way,
had writing on it. The
would you
bathtub
hang
had a
out?
few
Would
of
you
my clothes
sit there
in
and
it
then try to tape him and
paint,
risk really pissing him off?
and both
If
of
you
the
know he
two
could- he would
mirrors were
attack you
painted.
at any
I believe I
moment?
took a picture of both
I don't
mirrors.
know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
And then I'm going to ask you, Michelle, if you can bring us back to 1831.
I mean, granted, sometimes we can't explain the things we do or why we do them, but there's several things that don't add up with her.
And did you take this picture?
No,
Okay. And do you see in the mirror there, can you see the bathtub in the back there?
yes, I can.
All right. Was that the bathtub that you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
And that had your clothes in it?
Objection leading.
I'm sorry, what, if anything, did it have in the bathtub?
A few of my clothes with paint on them. You can see I think that's what I see it in the corner of the mirror.
Okay. And then let's go to 377 for a moment. That was in evidence already. And do you recall seeing this picture earlier?
I do.
Okay. And now let's go to 1829, please. Does that appear to be the same lampshade but in color?
It does appear that.
Okay,
It is.
thank you. All right, now let's just go through. I'm going to ask you to take a look at 1834. What does this depict that you can recall?
That is the TV that Johnny threw the cup of coffee at.
Okay. And let's go to 1835. And what does this depict?
One
You
of
know,
the
we've
sofas in
already
the living room,
seen all this stuff, though.
next to the kitchen.
I mean,
with
I
blood
guess
on
they
it.
got to present it on her side too, but
And then let's go to 1837. And what does this depict?
Okay, guys, that's all for now. If you like the video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when we drop new videos. Thanks for hanging out with us. See you on the next one.